We are there, on the ground, supporting those in need, and bringing Jews out of danger and to safety in Israel. And while our work continues in Ukraine, it also continues here at home, where Federation leaders are urgently lobbying members of Congress to support extraordinary aid to Ukraine. We are in both places, at the same time, for the same reasons. There are Jews at risk, and we do not stand by when people are in danger. We do not wait until there is an emergency to create an effective system of rescue and humanitarian aid. The impact we have had for our Ukrainian brothers and sisters was not built overnight. It was built over decades. The Jews of Ukraine are fleeing, some to find safety, and others are flying to a new life in Israel, while Jews in North America are petitioning their government to accept the refugees from Ukraine. This is both a miracle and a result of hard work.
I'm Stephanie Tesman, President and CEO. Thank you for joining us this morning for a very important briefing and update on the crisis in Ukraine. Our call today comes just a few days before the holiday of Purim, and it is quite ironic that the unfolding situation in Ukraine reflects our ancient retelling of the Megillah and all of its lessons. Once again, another Haman has arisen, and his name is Putin. Only this time, he not only threatens the Jewish people, but the entire nation of Ukraine, and indeed the entire free world. And just like the story of Purim, there are also Jewish heroes who have arisen in the form of Vladimir Zelensky and his wife Olena, as well as Naftali Bennett, Israel's prime minister. The world anxiously awaits to see what will happen in Ukraine, but one thing is for certain: Russia's unjustified war against Ukraine has created the single largest humanitarian crisis to face Europe since the end of World War II. The effect and impact of the war is being felt on millions of Ukrainian citizens, including more than 2.5 million who have already fled the country for safe harbor in neighboring countries and elsewhere. The crisis is also affecting our Jewish brothers and sisters in Ukraine, and will continue to have an impact on the Jewish communities in neighboring countries like Poland, as well as in Israel. Our international partners, the Jewish Agency for Israel, the Joint Distribution Committee, are already on the ground, along with United Hatzalah, Hillel International, and other Jewish and Israeli NGOs to provide care and comfort to those in need, regardless of whether they are Jewish or not. Just like the Purim story, when ordinary Jews like Esther and Mordechai rose to the challenge to protect and defend the Jewish people, so do we have the opportunity to become more modern-day Esthers and Mordechais. Our efforts are no less important as we are called upon to help provide the vital philanthropic assistance that will be needed to care for millions of refugees, including thousands of our brothers and sisters. I'd like to now turn it over to our board chair, Bruce Goldman.
Hi, everyone. And first of all, thanks for caring. Thanks for being on this call and getting updated. As Stephanie mentioned, our community has certainly seen us Esthers and Mordecais who have risen to the occasion to help the most vulnerable during this tragedy. Since the beginning of the invasion, we have raised over $165,000 from 325 donors. Thank you so much for your incredible support. Of that money raised, the first $95,000 went directly to support the work of JDC, one of our overseas partners, and all the additional dollars raised will be sent to the Jewish Federations of North America to support JDC, as well as our other partners on the ground, which include JAFI, which is the Jewish Agency for Israel, United Hatzalah, World Order, and Hillel International. And as we have stressed, all dollars are going directly to the agencies. There's no fees or anything taken out of it. Our Jewish Federation movement has already assisted in the aliyah of hundreds of Ukrainian Jews to Israel, and no doubt thousands more will follow in the days and weeks and months ahead. We've provided humanitarian aid, and including medication, clothing, and food. There's more work to be done. I am pleased to be joined today by representatives of JAFI, United Hatzalah, and the JDC, who will share updates about their work on the ground. Please welcome Algum Ben-Horon, who is JAFI's Regional Director for the United States. Following Algum, we will hear from Yehuda Seton, who's the Chief Operating Officer of JAFI, who sent us a message today from Poland. Algum?
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Jewish Nevada. Good morning. So my name is Algom, and I'm grateful and honored to be here with you today and share what the Jewish Agency does on the ground in Ukraine to save Jewish lives, because it's not a given to me what's happening today. I grew up in a house where my grandfather was a Holocaust survivor and my grandmother was a survivor of the Arab pogroms in Sfat, and they both fought the Irgun and fought to establish the safe haven that we call Israel today. So this is great. I'd like to start with another personal story. I'd like to tell you about my friend Dianka. She, like the majority of Kiev residents, woke up at 5:30 in the morning to the sounds of explosions of the Russian attack outside the city. We were talking, we were texting on WhatsApp. She was very scared. I immediately gave her the emergency hotline number of the Jewish Agency, and she called. And just, I think a day after, she was already on a bus on an 18-hour drive to Moldova, Kishinev. And on Saturday, just this past Saturday, I got the following WhatsApp voice note.
Algom, I've come to Israel.
I bet you can hear how happy and relaxed she is to be back home. So let me rewind a little bit and take you through the steps that the Jewish Agency has been doing to save Jewish lives. And it started with opening the emergency hotline, which, as you can see, we've received many calls, not just from the Ukraine, but also from Belarus and Russia. We've been arranging and coordinating the buses to bus them from the different Ukrainian cities to the borders. Just Friday, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we took a bus out of Kharkiv under heavy shelling with 50 people on it. And you know, once they arrive in the border crossing, we're meeting them, we're welcoming them, we're busing them and transporting them to hotels and other facilities that we rented to accommodate all these refugees. And really, it's heartbreaking. They're arriving with such stories, you know, with only one luggage. Some of them barely had time to pack anything. It's really heartbreaking. We also have 24,000 contacts from previous, you know, connections and program participants in the Jewish Agency that we were able to be proactive and send them all these emails and call them and make sure that they know we're there on the ground if they need help. And we're still in touch with some of the communities, with the rabbis and other local communities to make sure if there are any evacuation needs, we're going to be there to take them out. So we're keeping these communications. And we're clearly monitoring the situation 24/7, and we're holding emergency forums, sometimes hourly. So prior to the war, we had 90 employees in the Ukraine. Right now, we cut that a little bit to keep everyone safe as possible. So we only have 46 employees on the ground helping. While people were rushing out, we stayed in. And additionally, we have 18 employees in the neighboring countries, Poland, Hungary, Romania, and we're sending more and more employees to support and facilitate all this, you know, masses of refugees that are arriving. Another thing that I think is worth mentioning is that we're working very well with our partners, with JDC, which Michael Novick can tell you more about it later. But also one of, I think, the advantages that we have as an organization is the ability to work with the Israeli government. That allowed us some access to intelligence. So if some countries found it a surprise that Russia attacked, for us, it wasn't a surprise. And fortunately, and thank God, we were ready and prepared. And our hotline was up and running, I think the day after the initial invasion. So that gives us a lot of advantages, and also the ability to provide some of our employees with diplomatic passports to go in and out freely and easily in and out of the Ukraine. So focusing now on four main things. One is the care for Aliyah. All of these refugees that are arriving, some of them, they want to make Aliyah and move to Israel, start fresh. So we're helping them. We estimate about 10,000 to 20,000 Olim will arrive to Israel. And we're the only organization really that has the mandate to facilitate Aliyah and absorption. The other thing that we're doing is that, look, we understand there will be a Jewish community in the Ukraine staying the day after, and there still is, and they need to be safe. You know, during wars and anarchy and chaos, there's looting, personal safety is an issue. So we're providing them through our security fund with grants to pay stipend to local security companies that will just literally protect them and the institutions. We already have been giving $1.5 million to the local communities. We've provided them with satellite phones. Guys, the Russians are bombing indiscriminately, and communication lines can drop at some point in certain cities. We need them to be able to connect with us constantly. Obviously, we're assisting the Israeli government with the efforts as needed, but we're also assisting Ukrainians and Russians who are in Israel right now on a JAFI program. I'm sure you're familiar with the Masa program, with Nativ, with Naale. We have a lot of teenagers, young adults that are in Israel. And imagine what it's like, you know, being from Ukraine on a program with another Russian guy, waking up in the morning, sharing the same room. Things can be a little uncomfortable. They need a lot of emotional support, and we're able to provide them this emotional support. Now, I want to talk about numbers a little bit. For those of you who like numbers, we've been getting more than 28,000 calls to our emergency hotline, also from Russia. We accommodated more than 3,250 people just 2 nights ago. Tonight, last night, it was already 4,000 people. We've already been getting 5,020 Aliyah applications. Sorry, you see, we have welcomed 1,536 Olim, and we're expecting 850 more Olim to arrive only this week. These are pictures of the first Olim who came to Poland from Ukraine. And I'd like to show you this video now of the reactions of Olim arriving to Israel.
טיסה חשובה, שהאנשים האלה נקלטו בעצם בגבולות על ידי אנשי הסוכנות היהודית והקרן לידידות. כמובן נמצא איתי גם קרן היסוד. עושים מאמצים, כל העולם היהודי עושה מאמצים יחד עם ממשלת ישראל כדי שאנחנו נוכל לחלץ אותם ולהביא אותם לכאן, לישראל.
המצב באוקראינה עצוב מאוד, לראות מאות אלפים מבני עמנו שחוטפים כעת הפגזות על בתיהם. אנחנו בסוכנות היהודית עומדים לצידם, גם בהוצאה שלהם את הגבולות וגם בהבאה שלהם כאן, ביחד איתם להגשים את החלום הציוני פה בארץ ישראל.
My husband stands there and we are here and we are safety, but he is there and my grandmother and my grandfather is there and my friends, everybody is there.
That was very hard, but now it's so warm and I don't feel anxiety, and I'm feeling peaceful. Now that's just 2 minutes that I have been to Israel, and that's really great feelings.
Yeah, that's some of the reactions. Now, I've been telling you about those families and young adults, so you can see some numbers. we're very close to what, 900 almost, 700, what is it? But I'm going to tell you a short story about Eliyahu, who just reunited this morning with his mother, his sister and brother and nephew. They just arrived this morning and we welcomed them at the airport. It was very emotional, as you can imagine. So it's really incredible, all that work. So I'll just sum it up. These are the needs we identified. $85 million, people. That's a lot of money. And all this is for transportation and security, like I said, the transit centers and temporary housing that we've established in the neighboring countries, the emergency assistance to the refugees, the massive staff deployment, the security stipends for the local NGO, all those Aliyah flights, the initial absorption in Israel, finding them job and work frames and all of that. Unfortunately, that costs a lot of money. But hey, here's the good thing. We've got you, our strong partners, and really our ability to help on the ground is thanks to the communities and this support we're getting from our partners at JFNA and you guys. And thank God we have strong communities. So thank you as an Israeli, as a Jew, as a JAFI employee. And I think now we have a video from Yehuda Seton, the CEO of the Jewish Agency.
Shalom, Jewish Nevada. I'm Yehuda Seton. I'm the COO and the Chief Program Officer of the Jewish Agency. I'm here in Warsaw, Poland, and I just came back from Romania, meet our people that are dealing with the Jewish refugees all over the neighboring countries around Ukraine. Our staff on the ground in Ukraine and outside in the borders in the neighboring country is dealing with thousands of Jewish refugees that need our help. We have 6,000 right now in our refugee centers. We have another 2,000 that already made Aliyah. We have hundreds of people that coming every single day, and we try to accommodate them. Our mission right now is save any Jews from Ukraine. And this is what we do 24/7, I have to say, without any sleep. We are working hand in hand with the government of Israel, with the local organization in Ukraine and outside of Ukraine, with national organization. Yesterday, I met some of them and listened to their stories. This is the same stories that I heard from my grandmother and grandfathers years ago. But I think the main change right now is that on one hand we have a vibrant, strong Jewish community that support us and through us support the Jewish of Ukraine. And we have the state of Israel. They have a place to go if they want to, that will take care of them. That's what we do every single moment of the day. It's true that we have huge numbers, 6,000, 2,000, maybe 10,000 people that we're dealing with them right now. But I think it's not only about the numbers, it's about the people, about each and every one of them, their stories. They're coming from war zone. They have been traveling for days in order to come to our place. And they know they have the Jewish people to support them. If 40 years ago, you don't want to say you're a Jew, today you want to say you're a Jew because this is your ticket to get out from this unbelievable disaster that's happening right now in Ukraine. Behind me, this is a small amount of people that you see every single day. We have hundreds of people that come into our place, registered in order to get our shelter. Our shelter is fully take care of their food. They're coming with nothing, with less than a luggage. So we give them clothes, we give them food, we give them medicine. We have kind of an medical centers that we open over here and take care of them before they're flying to Israel, or if they decided to stay in Poland or any other countries. We need to remember that our ability to work on Friday night was because we worked on Wednesday and we worked on Monday. And we worked there because of your support of JFNA, your support through JFNA to the Jewish Agency of Israel. And with your support, we will continue to work, continue to be the cornerstone of the Jewish people, helping Jewish refugees getting out of Ukraine and saving their life. Thank you very much, Jewish Nevada.
Thank you, Algom and Yehuda, and our representatives from the Jewish Agency for Israel. You are doing an incredible job. Now I would like to introduce you to Dov Meisel, Vice President of Operations from the United Hatzalah. United Hatzalah is an organization that is also doing life-saving work on the ground. Dov is joining us live from Romania. Dov?
So hi, good evening. One small correction. I am no longer in Romania. Actually, we're based in Moldova, and I actually am in Ben Gurion Airport, where I just landed now with our 8th plane of refugees from the Ukraine. Right behind me, you can see them being all greeted by beautiful Israelis. This is one of 8 flights that we've been able to send from Moldova, from Romania, and bring these people back to the Holy Land here in Israel. I've actually concluded now. I came home for a short break of 2.5 weeks since we started this operation in Moldova on the border of Ukraine. We have over 60 people, volunteers, that have been operating since the first Sunday after the war started. This is 3 days after the war started. And our primary goal going out there is to provide 3 things. Number one is a humanitarian relief, medical treatment on the border crossings, on the northern border and southern border of Ukraine, where refugees are coming in, crossing the border into Moldova, coming from the very long and treacherous roads, taking 3, 4, 5 days, getting to the borders, obviously exhausted, and not to talk about the mental aspects of this, of the torn apart family, because what we've been seeing over the past 2.5 weeks there is primarily women, children, and elderly people that have been coming to the border crossings. In Kishinev, in the capital, we've set up a sort of a emergency operations center that is focusing on, number one, assisting in channeling the refugees to the different centers, the refugee camps that have been set up throughout the city and the Jewish community and others. We actually started a kitchen there that after 3 or 4 days is already pushing out 3,000-4,000 meals a day to the refugees there, working around the clock, including on Shabbat, cooking through the Shabbat in order to provide food for these buses showing up at 2, 3, 4 in the morning, coming in from Odessa, Kharkiv, Mariupol, and others. And of course, our EOC there that was managing the coordination of the flights. Coordination of the flights, obviously, in order to get people into Israel, we need to meet the criteria that the government imposed us with. So we spread out links for all these people that are even still in Ukraine, making their ways to the border so they can register to these flights. We've had a flight almost every single day. Tomorrow we have 2 flights. The following day we have an additional flight. And additionally, early this morning, we had a cargo plane taking over 15 tons of medical supplies, food, and other humanitarian support that landed in Moldova, working with the government there, working with the foreign ministry in Israel to facilitate this. We're able to provide a lot of support there. Not as much medical anymore now, because now 2.5 weeks into this event, the establishment there has already started setting up an infrastructure to deal with this. But in these initial 2 weeks, there was more medical treatments, etc. But now we're focusing on the air transports of these people to Israel, to bring them here, to be settled in Israel and out of harm's way. And of course, to push a lot of equipment, both to Moldova, humanitarian assistance, and we're setting up an infrastructure. We have members now in Poland and in Slovakia, now setting up an infrastructure to push humanitarian assistance directly into Ukraine. So that's our primary goal. And I mean, we had a changing of the guards, if so to speak, when we had another 30 volunteers leave yesterday and today to Moldova to take over for those who have been there for the past 2.5 weeks. We wouldn't have been able to do this without the amazing support of JFNA and others that have been, and obviously private donors as well, that have been financing all of these flights. These flights are not paid for by anyone in the government, obviously. They have all been sponsored by donations, as well as even thinking about the little parts of making sure that the people that get on the plane get a lunchbox with warm food in it, so that when they're on their way on the plane, they can eat. Paying the COVID test bill at the Ben Gurion Airport, believe it or not, the government will not waive that bill. So we're covering even that bill so they can have an easy pathway into Israel. And even, I don't know if you can see anymore, the buses are pulling up there, but we also even bring Bnei Akiva and yeshivas and seminaries and other youth volunteers to come and greet them at the airport with flags, songs, and dancing. So very exciting, very emotional. It's been a lot of emotional moments. I've been to disasters around the world. I'll really wrap it up now, but I've been to disasters around the world. I've been to Haiti and Nepal and the hurricanes, the different hurricanes, and even recently we've been to the Houston hurricanes, and even recently to Florida when the building collapsed. But nothing ever prepared for such a human catastrophe like we've been witnessing over the past 2.5 weeks in Moldova on the border of Ukraine. So right before I go back there in another day or two. So I want to thank you guys for the support. And if anyone obviously will have any questions, I'm more than glad to answer.
Thank you, Dov. I'm very emotional now. I'm very proud for the work that you're doing there. I'm pleased now to welcome Michael Novick, Executive Director of Strategic Development for the JDC. He will share a few updates, and then we will be joined by his colleague Amos, who's live in Warsaw.
Thank
Michael?
you, Karen. Thank you very much, Karen. It's wonderful to be with you this morning. And thank you to all of the individuals who are joining this from Jewish Nevada, and most especially the incredibly generous response to support the work of JDC during the current crisis. I'd like to begin just by framing the current situation in the context of some history, so we really understand where we were yesterday and before February 24th, especially when the conflict began. JDC has been in Ukraine for over 100 years. We were responding initially to a different war at that time, and that was the consequences of World War I. And we have been in Ukraine ever since, providing aid to Jews and Ukrainians that are impacted by war, famine, and other challenges that have taken place in every decade since the early 1920s. So today, Ukraine is home to some 43 million people. There's an estimated Jewish population of about 200,000 Jews. It's one of the largest Jewish communities in the world. Our role as the leading global Jewish humanitarian organization working in Ukraine and across the former Soviet Union is very simple. We're there to save Jewish lives and build Jewish life. Our mission is to care for tens of thousands of the neediest Jewish elderly and poor Jewish families, to rebuild and innovate Jewish community life, and to train a whole new generation of Jewish leaders since the fall of communism. We entered Ukraine 30 years ago after the fall of communism, and today we're operating in 4 cities with JDC offices in Kiev, Dnipro, Kharkiv, and Odessa. Those 4 offices are supporting a network of social welfare agencies serving the neediest Jews in 18 different communities. And from those 18 hubs, we're reaching out to those Jews in over 1,000 locations all across Ukraine, a landmass about the size of Texas. So JDC today, even before the conflict began, serving 37,000 needy elderly clients. Almost 10,000 of them are Holocaust survivors, and 2,500 who are children living in very significant at-risk situations. Over that same span of time, over the last 30 years, we've helped to create brand new Jewish institutions, very much like what we have, what you have in your community. We support major JCCs. We've helped create 6 of them across the major cities in Ukraine, helped stimulate Jewish cultural and holiday programming, Jewish family retreats, and a substantial amount of informal Jewish education opportunities. But most especially, it's important to emphasize in recent years, training young adult people to become the next generation of leaders, producing more than 380 graduates who are becoming active in their Jewish communities. One of the outcomes of that young leadership development has been in the last 6 years to create vibrant, robust volunteer centers all across the former Soviet Union, where today in Ukraine alone, we can count 1,000 or more volunteers who are helping respond to the needs on the ground. There's an organization that you and we, through your regular annual campaign, help to create called Active Jewish Teens. Active Jewish Teens is based upon the United States BBYO model, and there are in over 63 locations, including multiple locations in Ukraine, thousands of new young leaders who have gotten involved in community life. So that's just the backdrop in terms of understanding the reality and the chaos of war today. So today, my colleague Amos Lev-Ran will be joining us shortly from the border, from Warsaw as well. We are assisting over 7,000 Jewish refugees. That number is growing by the day, with transportation, with food, clothing, accommodations, temporary housing, and in coordination with local Jewish communities in Europe, we're welcoming and caring those Jews who are crossing the border, as others have described, and preparing for their future needs. Many, as you know, have been evacuated from Ukraine, but at the same time, we're also continuing to provide daily services for those who are unable to leave. Most of the elderly we're serving before hostilities on February 24th, most of the 37,000 elderly are still in place in Ukraine. They are unable to leave, and yet our services on the ground to them through the Chesed welfare agencies, with our home care workers, with our volunteers, continues until this day. In some cases, they have been moved to other locations because their homes have been damaged, but I'm pleased and very thankful that we have not received any reports of death or injury to any of the clients that we are serving.
Algam, we have a question.
Sure.
I don't know, how are folks in Israel communicating to family members still in the Ukraine? Are they using WhatsApp or other platforms?
Yes, they're using WhatsApp. Right now, most of the communications are available, so they're using WhatsApp. They're also contacting us. The hotline was established to help not just the Ukrainian Jews, but we've also been getting calls from Belarus, from Russia, and obviously from worried friends and family members in Israel. And we're helping obviously make these connections. Like I said, we're locating family members, we're locating friends, bringing them to safety and then to Israel.
So I see, Stephanie, that Amos Lev-Ran from our senior management and the former Soviet Union team has joined us. And Amos has been with JDC for nearly 20 years, serving in a variety of capacities, but most especially in our senior leadership response to the situation in Ukraine. So Amos, please, I've provided some framing and background before you joined the call, but I have not yet talked about the specifics of our response today, particularly in the location that you're at. So take it away.
Okay, I hope you can hear me. I prefer to keep my mask on. I am speaking to you now from Lublin in Poland, from Yeshivat Chachmei Lublin, a very famous yeshiva that was actually built in 1930, a building that belongs to the Jewish community, and in times of peace serves as also a hotel, among other things. And the Jewish community decided during this time to change the premises to a premise that will basically accept refugees and provide accommodation. So the community basically is giving the property for refugees, and JDC is coming in to bring the refugees here from the border, to cover the accommodation, to make sure that they have all their needs taken care of. And what you see behind me is a collection center where basically volunteers from the community come together, collect goods, collect food. There's food here for babies. There are blankets, there are shoes, there are boots, there are coats, and the refugees can come here and can take the needs. And we are welcoming any refugee who needs the help. Just to give you some numbers, thus far, JDC evacuated 4,000 people from Ukraine, including from the hotspots that you're hearing in the news. I won't go into specific locations, but the buses are continuing to evacuate Jews even as we speak. Over 4,000 thus far. We've assisted thus far 7,000 refugees with either evacuation or accommodation or food or medicine. And as of today, we have over 2,000 beds that are occupied in Moldova, Poland, Hungary, Romania. And we have a three-pronged strategy. The first is hotlines. We opened up hotlines in all of the countries where we have refugees. We have 2 lines in Ukraine, one for general and one for evacuation. And we have hotlines in all of the neighboring European countries, in Poland, Romania, Hungary, Moldova, Slovakia, even Estonia and Latvia and Bulgaria. And that is a key for our operation. Many of the refugees call ahead of time, and we know that we need to meet them at the border. We also have outgoing calls, both from our volunteer center in Kishinev, as well as from volunteers in Israel, reaching the neediest clients, the homebound, the bedridden, to make sure that they have all their needs met. The second issue is basically to help those that are staying. The majority of the Jews have stayed in Ukraine thus far. Out of the total population of 200,000, the majority have stayed. And I'm sure that in the introduction, you understood that JDC has a mass, unparalleled infrastructure in Ukraine. We have 18 Chesed humanitarian assistance centers. We have hundreds of Chesed workers and thousands of home care workers who are continuing to provide support during this time. And we are making sure that the neediest clients continue to receive the home care and material support. Home care in some places is continuing in full. Home care in other places where it's not possible, according to our emergency protocol, the neediest are prioritized and they continue to receive this life-saving service, especially the homebound and the bedridden that simply cannot survive without home care. Food and medicine. As you know, we provide most of our material support through bank cards and food cards. And we made sure that the clients have additional money. And now we're even making sure that they can take cash out as needed. We also made sure that the Cheseds have additional food, medicine, water before the war. And that proved to be especially important. And now we are continuing to provide additional food and medicine, including through shipments. We had a first plane come in last week in partnership with the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews and with the Latet from Israel, with 14 tons of goods that flew into Kishinev. Some of the goods stayed in Moldova, and most of it went to the Odessa Chesed, and from there, it's going to be dispersed into other Cheseds in the region. And we also have trucks that have already come in from the outside into Western Ukraine, and that is very encouraging because we see that there are routes that are possible to bring in. And the third part of our operation is to take people out, to evacuate them, as I mentioned, with buses, to meet them at the borders, to provide them with accommodation, with food, with medicine, and to make sure that we help them prepare for their next stage. Some of the people move on to friends and relatives, the ones that have close family and friends, many of them to Germany. Others decide to make Aliyah, and we work in close partnership with our colleagues from the Jewish Agency and from the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. And all the rest are the ones that are still deciding what to do next, that are in most need of assistance, and that most rely on us, on all of us. And we are there to help them. We are there to provide them with the support that they need, with the psychological support, and to assist them as they basically deal with this unbelievable trauma. I was at the border just yesterday. It is a scene like no other. Women, children, elderly, with very few belongings, no men at all, traumatized, simply traumatized. What is unbelievable is actually the quiet, the silence, the lack of crying that really speaks volumes and speaks to their trauma and the unbelievable need that they have. And together with you, we are there to make sure that we step up during this critical historic time, provide all the assistance both within the country and to those that seek to evacuate, and to make sure that we continue to be the lifeline for the Jewish community. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Stephanie, if I can just jump in briefly and comment that the scene that you're seeing behind Amos today in Lublin is being duplicated in volunteer centers all over Eastern Europe, in the places where refugees are resettling. There are thousands of volunteers in the Jewish community that are helping to collect goods in kind and bringing them to center points like this to distribute to those who are in greatest need.
I'll just add that I was in Warsaw just a few hours ago, exactly like Michael said, a very similar scene. The community is stepping up. People are taking refugees into their homes. JDC, one of our strengths is that we work in very, very close partnership with the communities. And we see that that partnership is even stronger today during this time. And I do want to finish by saying thank you, because the only reason we're able to react today in such a significant way is because of the significant infrastructure that we had a day before the war. And that was only possible thanks to partners like you. And your ongoing support is enabling now the tens of JDC workers, the hundreds of Chesed workers, and the thousands of home care workers to be our foundation for a strong response.
I just want to I want to start by just thanking Stephanie and Jewish Nevada for putting this call together today. You know, with all the horrific things that we're hearing about over the last couple of things coming out of Ukraine, it is incredibly heartwarming to hear that the international Jewish community, the Sochnut, JDC, the Federation, and what they're doing on the ground to help the people who are in need right now. So thank you for putting this together today so that we could hear directly from the JDC and the Sochnut what's going on in that area. So thank you, Stephanie and Jewish Nevada. I want to conclude with a few words of prayer based on a prayer by Joanne Fink. Holy One, source of strength, war is raging and innocent people are dying. We ask your protection for Ukraine and its citizens. We pray for the safety and security of the country. We hope that the situation will be diffused swiftly. May Hungary and Poland and Moldova and other neighboring countries continue to open their borders and provide safe passage, food, shelter to those who are able to evacuate. Bless our world leaders with the ability to work together for the greater good and the wisdom to make wise decisions during this turbulent time. Bless the people of all nations with the desire, strength, and courage to create a world based on justice and filled with peace. We seek the comfort of believing that everything will be all right, yet it's hard to hold on to hope in the face of these insurmountable odds. Quiet the fears that deafen us, grant us shlemut, the inner peace we so desperately seek. May the words of Isaiah, Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they know war anymore, become true in our day, in this very hour. Source of goodness, shine your healing light on us and those in the Ukraine. We hold in our hearts, shelter us, shield us, show us the path to peace. Amen.